This video is brought to you by Mubi. Get 30 days of great cinema for free at mubi.com/Patrick H. Willems.
I'll tell you, I'm in a pickle the size of Newfoundland. So my girlfriend and I are supposed to go to the movies, and I can't decide what to see. And she's the film buff, you know? If only there was somebody who could give me some insight into the current offerings at the cinema. Pardon me, I hate to be a bother, but you wouldn't happen to know anything about movies, would you? I just need someone to explain them.
Yeah, I think I might be able to help.
Thank the great Wyatt North. I mean, okay, what movie should I be getting tickets for? My head is running at 100 kilometers an hour right now.
You know, that's a pretty big question. There's a lot of good movies out right now. Obviously, we all have to head back to Pandora to learn about the Way of Water. Gotta see the space whales. And if that's sold out, then I would say just head next door and go meet the Fablemans. It's a great time. Have you seen Tar? Dude, you gotta see Tar. And look, I'm not from around here. I don't really know what kind of movie theaters you've got, but if you've got any little art house theaters, you should go check out After Sun. And man, now I am just thinking about how many good movies have come out this year. Like especially big proper movie theater movies that you wanna see with a good crowd. Things like RRR and Top Gun.
I just kind of meant what's playing in theaters right now.
But if you really wanna feel like you're going 100 kilometers an hour, dude, have you seen Ambulance? You probably haven't, because the sad reality is that most people haven't. Somehow, the new action movie directed by Michael Bay, and not just that, but genuinely his best movie in a decade, flopped at the box office, which is a really bad sign for our current cinema landscape, because this same movie absolutely would have been like one of the biggest movies of 1998. And in many ways, it feels like a throwback to an era of action movies that we all miss. This year, we got a lot of movies conceived and shot during the pandemic that were designed to work within certain restrictions. Smaller scale movies with limited casts and locations. Soderbergh made Kimi, set mostly in one apartment. Aronofsky made The Whale, set mostly in one apartment. And Michael Bay wanted to do the same thing. So he made a movie with a fraction of the budget of his usual work about a few people in one vehicle. And it looked like this. This, my friend, is Ambulance. It's a mini Los Angeles crime saga set over just 12 hours. A sprawling story of a bank robbery gone wrong, the difficulties of family, a tribute to first responders, and a testament to the power and potential of drone cinematography. It is a frantic, chaotic, frankly overwhelming experience, especially in IMAX. This is a movie that has a Jake Gyllenhaal performance cranked to 11.
All right, 1 second.
It has ruptured spleens, big dogs, and little cars, and the whole plot is kicked into motion because of characters discussing other Michael Bay movies. There were a lot of good movies in 2022, but nothing quite like Ambulance. The fact is, this movie rules, and today we are gonna talk about why. As some people know, I'm something of a scholar in the field of Michael Bay studies. But to be fair, this is a pretty small field. For a director whose name everyone knows, he's not often taken very seriously. For years, he was making hugely successful movies like Armageddon and The Rock, which were dismissed by critics, but damn if they didn't make a lot of money. And then, if we're being honest, the choice on his part to direct 5 Transformers movies really did not do any favors to his reputation. Sure, they made billions and billions of dollars, but generally, even his fans will tell you that they are his worst movies. But still, periodically, he would slide in a secret masterpiece, like Bad Boys 2, one of the ugliest, meanest, most nihilistic pieces of mainstream art America has ever produced, or Pain and Gain, Bay's Dayglow massacre of American entitlement. But for us Bay scholars, the past several years have been strange. In 2016, Michael Bay released 13 Hours, his Benghazi movie that everyone expected to be some appalling right-wing tirade and then wasn't. It was shockingly straightforward and restrained and not really very offensive at all. But other than some really striking nighttime digital cinematography courtesy of Dion Beebe, it's also not all that interesting, mostly a less good Black Hawk Down. And its biggest sin may be convincing my nemesis, John Krasinski, that he should be an action star. After that, Bay gave us his fifth and final Transformers movie, The Last Knight, probably the most confusing movie ever made. It is a ton of fun to talk about because it's a movie that reveals that the Transformers helped Harriet Tubman with the Underground Railroad, and Stanley Tucci plays Merlin, Anthony Hopkins has a sociopathic robot butler named Cogman, and Mark Wahlberg, I think, turns out to be like descended from King Arthur or something, who knows. Anyway, the movie is fun to talk about, but less fun to actually watch. And most recently, Bay began his post-Transformers era with Six Underground, a massive, truly deranged action movie for Netflix that has great elements but is brought down by a tone that just occasionally decides that it actually is a serious movie with things to say, but at the same time, at its center is Ryan Reynolds, who is once again just playing Deadpool and spends the entire running time acting like he's watching the movie instead of existing within it. I've said this before, but with Michael Bay, you need a star who is fully dialed into the reality of the movie, and Reynolds is not that guy. So what I'm saying is, it's been a weird few years, and I had no idea what to expect. I always hoped for the best, though. I had faith that Bay could come through, and boy howdy, he sure did. Ambulance is, of course, a remake of a 2005 Danish movie called Ambulance in Danish. I haven't seen it, and I know nothing about it, but I'm assuming that it's pretty much the same premise. One of these days, I should probably check it out. Anyway, Ambulance tells the story of Will Sharp, a former Marine who's dealing with the Byzantine Kafkaesque nightmare that is America's healthcare system. His wife needs experimental surgery to save her life, and the insurance granted him as a veteran will not cover it, so he's in a bind. He asks his adoptive brother, Danny, for help. As we learn over the course of the film, their dad was a famous Los Angeles bank robber and by most accounts a pretty bad dude. Danny, whose day job is running a garage where rich people store their luxury cars, kinda took over the family business while Will took his life in another direction. But now, Will desperately needs a couple $100,000 and Danny has a job coming up. Like a robbery job, literally that day. Will shows up and Danny goes, "Hey, I'm about to go rob a bank with all my guys, wanna come with me?" And look, when Jake Gyllenhaal is shouting at you about family and money, and Bay's camera is spinning around him as sunlight pours into the scene, how can you say no? So less than 20 minutes into the movie, Will has an AR-15 in his hands and is riding downtown to steal $32 million in cash. Right now, we are in an era when Hollywood blockbusters are becoming blander by the day and losing any sense of identity. I've talked about color grading before, as we all know, and how easy it is to make something look like gray sludge, but it's not just that, and the problem isn't limited to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. American studios in general, and I'm including the major streamers here, have gotten comfortable with the factory-like churn of film production, where ideas and images are cobbled together almost algorithmically, and then assembled as quickly and efficiently as possible, from rushed green lighting to condensed shooting schedules to cruel post-production crunch that results in stuff like whatever the hell this is. And when I say these movies feel algorithmic, I don't mean their scripts are written entirely by AI, at least not yet. I mean stuff like Red Notice, which is less a movie and more of an ad for Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson, and their respective liquor companies, and which Netflix would have you believe was the most watched thing in human history. It even ruined an entire WWE Survivor series. Or more recently, there was The Gray Man, one of the biggest, most expensive action movies of the year. The Russo brothers, the guys who made Avengers Endgame, got a blank check from Netflix to launch a big new franchise starring huge movie stars, and delivered a movie that is, if I'm being charitable, best watched while half asleep on an airplane. The Gray Man is kind of a real Emperor Has No Clothes moment for the guys who did make the second biggest movie of all time.
Like you'd think with total creative freedom, a giant budget, and this time around, no obligations to an ongoing franchise, they could really show what they can do. And it turns out what they can do is deliver one of the most generic, lifeless blockbuster action movies in years. A movie with no good action scenes, no cool moments, no jokes, and a cast of characters who desperately wish they could be as exciting and memorable as Jake Sully. It really makes you think about what it means that the Russos were the guys that Hollywood apparently decided should lead the popular cinematic landscape. Sorry about that, I was getting off topic. I just have a lot of thoughts about The Gray Man, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Ambulance. So remember what I said earlier about the whole plot happening because of characters talking about Michael Bay movies? Well, here's where that comes in. See, as the heist is starting, we cut over to these two cops. One of them has a crush on this woman who works at the bank and has been trying to work up the confidence to ask her out. Now, first of all, never go into someone's place of work to ask them out. That's just a big no-no right there. But whatever, he's a dumb guy in an action movie. His partner gives him a talk about how he has to be like Sean Connery in The Rock.
Remember when Sean Connery said, losers whine, winners get to fuck the prom queen?
Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen.
And so Zach, his dopey partner, decides, yeah, he's gonna do it. He's gonna stop by the bank and ask her out. And so he does, but he arrives while the heist is in progress, and the two cops cause a shootout to erupt in the streets. Zach, the lovesick cop, gets shot during the chaos and then picked up by an ambulance operated by our other hero, Cam, played by Asa Gonzalez. Gonzalez has been a cool presence in a bunch of action movies in recent years like Baby Driver or Alita Battle Angel, but here she becomes a proper movie star. She is the one who gets the Michael Bay low-angle dolly shot in this one. And so Cam's ambulance with the wounded cop gets hijacked by Will and Danny trying to make their escape, and now suddenly we have our movie, as the overwhelming, terrifying dark forces of the LAPD chase after the ambulance with Will and Danny trying to hold on to their money. Cam is held hostage, and they all try to keep the cop alive because if he dies, they will be sent to prison for life. From this point onward, the movie basically becomes a 2-hour car chase. It is unrelenting. The action does not let up even for a moment, except for a slight musical interlude that we'll talk about in a few minutes. I mentioned earlier that I think one of the biggest problems with 6 Underground was casting Ryan Reynolds in the lead role. The guy is a talented actor, but his entire on-screen persona has become this aloof guy looking around at the movie he's in and smirking because he thinks it's all silly. And for Michael Bay movies, which take place in this deranged, heightened reality, if we're going to buy into these, we need actors who are on that exact deranged, heightened level. Nicolas Cage in The Rock, he gets it. Just like Reynolds, who he often works with, Dwayne Johnson has become one of the most boring movie stars working today, giving the same predictable, safe performances in every single movie. But he did the best work of his career the one time he worked with Michael Bay and just fully committed to the gonzo energy of Pain and Gain.
Jesus Christ himself has blessed me with many gifts. One of them is knocking someone the fuck out!
And thankfully, in Ambulance, Bay got an actor who understands exactly what this movie is and what energy it needs. I'm talking about my boy, Jakey G, the guy who, as far as we know, still has Taylor Swift's scarf in his drawer, even now. Jake Gyllenhaal has become such an exciting actor to watch over the last 20 years or so because, on the one hand, he obviously looks like a classically handsome leading man who could totally play like Green Lantern in 10 movies and coast on that for the rest of his career. And while that is true, he understands that his real talent is playing absolute fucking weirdos like Lou Bloom in Nightcrawler, Detective Loki in Prisoners, Dr. Johnny in Okja, and of course, maybe the best performance of the 21st century, Mr. Music in John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch.
I'm making music! Ha-ha!
Characters who you can't look away from because, yeah, they have charm and natural good looks, but you're also kind of terrified and fascinated to see what the hell these guys are going to do. And Danny Sharp in Ambulance belongs in the S tier of Gyllenhaal characters.
My name's Daniel. but I prefer Danny. I don't give a fuck.
He's a charming, cashmere turtleneck-wearing bank robber who loves his brother and is always a split second away from completely losing his shit and throwing a fit and maybe shooting someone. Here, let's take a look at a few of his best moments.
Fucking Atari game! I don't fucking know!
Are you done sucking the life out of every person in this ambulance?
It's cashmere!
Yeah, well, I wish I didn't have herpes, but, we all gotta go with what we got.
This is a huge performance that might seem over the top and too much if this wasn't a Michael Bay movie with huge dogs and tiny cars and drone cameras dive-bombing the action every few seconds. In other words, it is a performance that is perfectly calibrated to this specific movie. I hope Gyllenhaal and Bay make like 10 more movies together. Around the halfway point of Ambulance, there is one of the best scenes of 2022. A scene that is simultaneously agonizingly suspenseful, hilarious, and gross as hell. In the middle of the ongoing car chase, Cam and Will need to perform surgery on the cop. But since neither have ever done this before, they need to call Cam's surgeon ex-boyfriend on FaceTime, and he then adds more surgeons to the call who happen to be in the middle of a game of golf. So you have a scene that is cutting back and forth between men in polo shirts on a golf course and our heroes cutting open a man's abdomen, removing his spleen, and tying up a severed artery with a hair clip. It is pure, deranged chaos, and it is spectacular. A feature, and if I'm being honest, often a bug of Michael Bay's movies is his weird, extremely juvenile sense of humor. I'm talking about things like Transformers peeing on John Turturro, or Will Smith accidentally shooting Martin Lawrence in the butt, and sometimes, even as a Michael Bay fan, I'm like, dude, chill out. But in Ambulance, I think he strikes a perfect balance. A movie this relentlessly intense needs some levity to balance things out, and Bay uses these lighter moments to build out this world and add dimension to the characters. Like, one of the great character introductions of 2022 belongs to Garrett Dillahunt as LAPD Captain Monroe, the main guy trying to take down our protagonists. We suddenly cut to him, driving this little car with a fucking enormous dog taking up like half the frame, and fun fact, that is Michael Bay's actual dog. It's a personal touch because he loves dogs. Look, this is a movie that hits pause on the action at one point so Gyllenhaal and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who plays Will, can sing along to Sailing by Christopher Cross. It is a totally unexpected turn for a movie like this, but it's telling us more about these characters and their relationship, and also, this cut is extremely funny. Okay, a fact about Ambulance that I think needs to be mentioned is that it has the same cinematographer as Agnes Varda's Faces Places. I just think that's cool. And also, it only cost $40 million. To put this in perspective, it cost less than one episode of The Lord of the Rings show, and it was only 20% of what The Gray Man cost. But you'd never tell looking at them side by side. Just look at Bay's version of LA. It's heightened, but it feels like a real place. While in The Gray Man, even the most exotic locations are reduced to boring backdrops with no visual dimensions and no real personality. That is, when they aren't being obscured by fog, smoke, and other atmospheric elements. And the contrast on the cinematography is so low that everything looks washed out, and there's no drama or shadow to the lighting. Gray Man, more like Gray Man. Like gray, comma, man. Like, I'm saying it looks really great, whatever. Recently in movies, drones have been replacing classic helicopter aerial shots. And I've gotta say, for my taste, they're usually kinda boring. They're almost too smooth and lack the slightly less steady weight of helicopter shots. But here, Michael Bay turned out to be the first filmmaker to actually make drones exciting and to use them not as a replacement for helicopter shots, but as a genuinely new piece of cinematic language. He hired a champion FPV drone racer who is basically a child, and the thing that Bay understands about drones is that they can move faster than any manually operated camera, and they can go places and make movements that no other cameras can. So here's what a typical drone shot in Ambulance will do. It will begin like a regular helicopter shot moving straight forward over the LA skyline, and then on a dime, it will just like misty flip over and dive bomb straight down the length of a skyscraper toward the ground. Watching this in IMAX, whenever this would happen, you could feel the entire row of people suddenly lean back, like physically reacting to the insane momentum of these visuals. Bay uses sweeping drone shots to enhance the action and turn it into a roller coaster. His visual style is already so frenetic and intense that having the camera rocketing through the air feels like a natural extension of what he's been doing. Now contrast that with The Gray Man, where the Russos use it mostly just to try to spice up regular establishing shots. But then like once every half hour or so, they throw one into an action scene. Most of the filmmaking in the movie is very standard widescreen coverage, and so when it suddenly cuts to a drone shot spinning around the action, it feels like a camera operator from a different movie suddenly crashed the set. It's distracting, it doesn't work, and a computer could have done it. Sorry, Joey and Tony, I know I'm ragging on you a lot, but your next movie also has a $200 million budget, so unless all of that is going to Millie Bobby Brown, you can afford to take a second and make some actual shot choices. Big movies like this used to be made by people like Michael Bay, who, yeah, sure, you can knock their storytelling skills, but at least they could make it look fucking good. You know they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on it, and you look at the screen and go, oh, yeah, I can see that. This is all a huge, spectacular stuff I've never seen before. And now you've got the Russos, and they deliver a bunch of dimly lit scenes and set pieces that look like gray sludge, with action scenes that are just subpar versions of what John Wick did for 1/10 the budget. And when they're not aping John Wick, they're just doing a pathetic imitation of Mission Impossible. If nothing else, bare minimum, a summer action movie of this scale should at least look cool. If you can't even do that, go home, you're fired. When the trailers and posters for Ambulance came out, we all made fun of the way the title was written, with the LA in the middle highlighted so it looks like it's called Ambulance. But watching the actual movie, emphasizing the LA of it all honestly makes sense. This isn't quite the Los Angeles crime saga that Michael Mann's Heat announces itself as, because honestly, what is? But it is definitely a Los Angeles crime story, and a portrait of the city itself. In a pretty sharp deviation from the nihilism of the rest of his work, Bay seems to really care about the vast collection of characters, from the EMTs and other first responders to the guy who works at Danny's garage and just wants to watch soccer, to the LAPD captain with a huge dog who's leading the chase. Looking at Bay's body of work, as I have many times, one thing that is very clear is that he has a deep respect and affection for members of the military, people who will risk their lives in service to their country. And what's also clear is that these are basically the only people that Bay respects. He despises everyone else, from government bureaucrats to horny teenagers to the vast majority of stupid, entitled Americans. And he loves to laugh as he destroys them all in spectacular asteroid crashes and robot battles. In some cases, like his masterpiece Pain and Gain, he doesn't even need otherworldly intervention. He can laugh as these awful humans destroy themselves. Which is why it's so shocking how different Ambulance is. Yes, the main character is a military veteran, a classic staple of Bay movies, but the movie isn't just interested in him on the battlefield. Ambulance is genuinely angry at America's healthcare system and how it treats veterans. Bay has never been this interested in the lives of his protagonists. He cares about the difficult relationships between the brothers and the love they still have for each other. And this next part might seem silly to be praising, but as a Bay scholar, it must be noted. This is a Michael Bay movie with a female lead who is never sexualized. Lest we forget, this is how Bay shot Megan Fox, or Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, in the Transformers movies. And here, the way he shoots Asa Gonzalez is downright respectful. The camera seems to admire her instead of leering at her. But there's more. When the film cuts to a gay couple in therapy at one point, I cringed, bracing myself for some classic Michael Bay broad stereotype, and then it doesn't happen. He has a major character, an FBI agent who used to know Danny, and he just happens to be gay. He's a person, not a joke. Now, I realize how low I'm setting the bar here, and this is stuff that should be expected of any filmmaker. But coming from the guy who made Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, this is real growth. One of the major aspects that's both a strength and weakness of Bay's filmmaking is the ways that he visualizes literally everything as the glossy, sexy, fetishized, coolest possible version of itself. And since his movies are almost always action movies that deal with the military and law enforcement and weapons, that means he's usually fetishizing weapons of war. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about Ambulance is that this is a movie in which all the power and weaponry of the Los Angeles Police Department is being used against the protagonists. The cops, even while they're portrayed as regular humans, are the bad guys here. And so, as Bay does his thing and gives us countless shots of police cars moving into formation, black police helicopters tearing across the LA skyline, and lots of guns, it has the opposite effect of his other movies. Now, it's scary. Look, is Ambulance a bit longer than it needs to be? Yes. Every Michael Bay movie is. He hasn't made a movie under 2 hours since 1995. But Bay cinema is a cinema of excess. And you just have to embrace that, because along with that excess comes genuine personality and style, something that, in this world of gray men and red notices, is a breath of fresh air and should be celebrated. This is a movie that demands your attention, not one designed to be watched while folding laundry. So anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Not really. But wait. Aren't you Patrick Willems? I thought I recognized. Aren't you wanted by the police?
You know, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I've actually got to run. I have somewhere important to be. But here, let me get your drink for you.
That's 45 cents.
This is my life now. Always running, always moving, and wherever I go, finding these small moments to explain.
Great, so that jerk just bailed on the video without even doing the ad read? Well, I guess once again, I am here to clean up his mess. So, as I think you know, I love movies. They're pretty much my favorite thing in the world. And that is why I'm very excited to say that this video is sponsored by the good folks at Mubi. Mubi, it sounds like movie, but it's M-U-B-I. Mubi. Mubi is a streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe, but unlike most other streaming services, which just dump a ton of stuff out there and leave it to you to search through all the mediocre and bad and boring things to find the few movies that are actually worth watching, Mubi is curated by people who actually really love movies, and they handpick this incredible selection of movies with a new one added every single day. The big, very important thing that I have to mention is that Mubi is the only place where you can stream Decision to Leave, the new movie by Park Chan-wook, one of the best filmmakers in the world. So if you're a fan of The Handmaiden, Oldboy, Lady Vengeance, Stoker, Thirst, well, that guy has a new movie out. It's like a Hitchcockian mystery thriller. It's a blast, you've got to see it, and Mubi is the one place to do that. Mubi is honestly one of my favorite sponsors to have on the videos because I actually do use it and I genuinely think it's great. Like here, this is the fun part where I just scroll through the site and tell you about cool things that they have available right now. They've got Nicholas Winding Refn's Pusher trilogy, which I admittedly have not seen and have been meaning to watch for years, so I should probably get to that soon. They've got Lars von Trier's new TV series, The Kingdom Exodus. Going back to the silent era, they have Buster Keaton's The General. They have Stanley Donen's Charade, one of my favorite movies. Andrea Arnold's Fish Tank, which is fantastic. Night of the Living Dead. Ooh, they've got Luca Guadagnino's I Am Love, starring Tilda Swinton. So, an awesome movie. And if you liked Bones and All, this is another Guadagnino movie that is also about eating. But it's about eating food, not people. And they've got Lee Chang-dong's Burning, and they even have Oh Lucy, which is the best movie Josh Hartnett has been in the past 15 years. And you can trust me on that because I am one of the co-hosts of the podcast We Heart Hartnett. Look, I love Mubi. I am very excited that they sponsored this video, and I really do think you should go sign up. And right now, you can get a whole month for free if you go to Mubi.com/Patrick H. Willems. So go try it out for a month. I think you'll like it a lot. And if you're trying to catch up on all the 2022 awards contenders, then you're gonna need to watch Decision to Leave, and Mubi is the one place to do that. Seems like an obvious choice to me. And that's a wrap on 2022. We got this in just under the wire. Whew, what a year. I released a feature film. I made several videos that were as long as feature films, and I am really tired. So here's what's gonna happen now. I am gonna take a week or so off and just chill out and try to relax, and then we're gonna come back strong in the new year because we've got a lot of big plans. We're cooking up some cool stuff that I'm very excited about, so you should go get your roommate and text your parents and tell them they should subscribe because they're not gonna wanna miss this. So that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching all of this and supporting what we do, and good night.